The John Gomez Show, 103.9 LI News Radio.
Yes, welcome back to the John Gomez Show. This is Steve Flanagan sitting in for John Gomez. John's off on vacation now, so I'll be sitting in for him today. And I want to thank everybody for listening so far. There's so much going on these days, to get you perturbed about our country and the politics. And, it's very easy to get down on a lot of things. You hear about corruption, you hear about payoffs, you hear about money, you hear about deals, and kind of get you upset at the system sometimes. Well, there's an old saying in politics, winning is everything. Unfortunately, sometimes that has a corrupting influence on people. And as I'm looking at some of the local elections these days, it seems to come to my mind that some things are going on that just aren't typical, or at least they shouldn't be typical. Let's put it that way. I'm referring to things, dirty tricks. They used to they called Richard Nixon, somebody who was involved in dirty tricks, but he wasn't the only one. It seems to be going around. I wanted to bring up a special guest here today. Her name is Maureen Dowling. Welcome to the show, Maureen.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
I wanted to bring Maureen in today because she is the editor of a fairly influential local political blog. It's called the Independent Sentinel. Now, I've been looking at the Independent Sentinel myself as a source of information, good information on what's happening locally and some other issues, statewide as well. And I've been, pretty much paying attention. I read the articles that come out. They're usually pretty factual. They're on target, and they're all backed up with facts. One of the things that I found out with the Independent Sentinel and the way Maureen presents herself is she certainly wouldn't say anything unless she could back it up with the facts. I'm kind of the same way myself. If we say something here on this show, I can guarantee you I have the documentation. Matter of fact, if you look at the office right now, you'll see piles of documentation here in case anybody has a question. Well, a couple of things have happened, and it specifically involves the 1st Congressional District race and a candidate, George Demos, who's running in a primary. Some of the things that are going on in his campaign have been disturbing to me personally. Number one, a specific lie about his opponent, Lee Zeldin, that somehow he supported Obamacare in New York. Nothing could be farther from the truth. The fact is that Obamacare in New York was passed by executive order from the governor in April of 2012. No vote was taken by the Assembly or the Senate. And honestly, I take personal offense that somebody's willing to lie to get into office about something as important as Obamacare. We all know that it's been bad for our country, and we all know that it's going to be an issue in a campaign. But to sit there and falsely accuse a candidate of supporting this when he did not, to me, it crosses the line. It crosses the line. Just because Obama can sit there and lie and say if you want to keep your doctor, you can, doesn't mean that George Demos or every other person running for office should have the ability to go out and so clearly lie about a candidate. There have been some other things, however. One of the things that's been going on, and again, it's the reason I have Maureen here. As I said, she's editor of the Independent Sentinel, and the Sentinel has been pretty active in uncovering some of the information relative to this campaign. She has exposed Demos, where his money comes from, the lies that he's been saying about Zeldin, and even more so has uncovered some of the actions that George Demos has taken as an SEC attorney, which also pretty much puts into question his character. But specifically, I want to just refer to an incident that happened a couple of weeks ago. I was a guest on this very show here with John Gomez, and we were discussing this campaign, and we received an email from a supposed listener who basically charged John Gomez and myself with lying about George Demos, with having it in for him, with being in cahoots with others to disseminate disinformation, etc. That's fine. You can have your opinion, that kind of thing. But the person who supposedly signed that email was our very own Maureen Dowling, who's sitting with us right now. And I want to ask Maureen right now, did you in fact send out that email?
Absolutely not.
And
Never.
You're aware of the comments that were in the email, however, I believe
yes.
I sent it to you?
Yes.
I mean, what do you have to say about something like that?
Well, first of all, we've known each other now since 2009, roughly.
Yes.
Never have I known you to lie, and I would certainly never accuse you. And I certainly wouldn't go after someone who's trying to fight for freedom and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. This is what I'm about, too. And I wouldn't hide behind an email. That is a very cowardly and juvenile thing to do. And someone who would use someone else's name to do it, really very juvenile individual. No, I would never do that.
And I kind of knew that as well. I know John and myself, when we saw the email came in, we were scratching our head and saying, my God, is that the Maureen that we know? Obviously it was not.
Yeah.
Now, that's one incident. But I understand, ever talking to you in the last couple of weeks, that this isn't the only instance where your name has been used. Can you give us a little detail on what else has happened, what your experience has been with the misuse of your good name on behalf of the Demos campaign?
Yes, since, I have I usually don't get involved in the local politics that much. I'm mostly into the national, and I've been doing this for a few years now. But when you see a good candidate or a candidate that is really bad for a position, you have to get involved. I certainly had to get involved. So I did get involved in the CD1 campaign, and I did put up some information that I had uncovered about George Demos. All of a sudden, I found that my site was being a shadowed typo squatting site. They misspelled my name, and they put up pictures and articles under my name, ripping apart Lee Zeldin, who I happen to think very highly of. And it's all pro-Demos articles and lies about Lee Zeldin voting for Obamacare, which is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. And they also contact me on my site as Maureen Dowling, 1901, 1910, 1905, trying to, it's just a very juvenile thing. These people don't have enough to do. And, with all that's going on in the country and the world today, for people to spend time on this kind of thing, I mean, in a way, I'm flattered that they think I'm important enough to actually mimic my site. And I think the fact that this is going on and the fact that George Demos has said nothing about it, he knows it's going on, he has said nothing condemning it or saying it should stop. So he's supporting it.
Now to be clear, what they actually did, you have a website,
yes.
Independent Sentinel. What's the web address for that?
My site is www.independentsentinel.com.
Now, what they did is they created a separate site called the Independent Sentinel. What was the designation?
Independent. They spell it wrong. IndependentSentinel.com.
So in effect, what they did is they took your website,
right.
the Independent Sentinel. They created a site which, unless you look very clearly, you're not going to know it's a different site.
It's a typo squatting, which is illegal.
Exactly, a typo type thing, just one letter difference in the name.
Right.
It has graphics on it, pictures, the whole thing. It looks like a real site.
Right.
And this information is using basically your name, Independent Sentinel,
yes.
and your personal name.
That's right.
On that website.
Right.
To disseminate disinformation
and attacks on someone I think very highly of. So I wasn't all that surprised when you got this email, because this is what they've been doing, using my name to spread lies.
Now, have you taken any action to try and rectify this? Have you looked into it or investigated it in any way? Who might be responsible for this specifically? I know it's hard to track down some of those things, but where have you gotten as far as that's concerned?
Well, I have a lawyer, and I haven't decided how far to go with that. I also have an investigator, and I do have information on the people. I'm not at a point where I'm going to share it, but I do have a lot of information, and I haven't decided how or when I'm going to use it. But, if I have to, I'll use it.
And now, have you contacted the Demos campaign at all to ask them to rectify the situation?
Only through Twitter and Facebook, but I've been blocked.
You're blocked?
I'm blocked. Not on Twitter, but on Facebook.
When you log into the site, somehow your email address is blocked.
Totally.
So you can't even communicate with the campaign at this point?
Not on Facebook.
Not on Facebook. No, it's interesting. Now, the other problem that we have with something like this is just, what does it say about a campaign? What does it say about an individual? What does it say about a candidate who would allow something like this to happen? Now, this isn't new news. This has been going on for a couple of months now that I'm aware of. I was aware when they stole the name. I know I got emails from yourself and others. So there's no doubt that George Demos himself is aware that this is going on.
Oh, yeah, he has to be aware that it's going on.
And so, I would, personally, go out and ask him either to look into this, to apologize, or at least to comment on it.
Right.
Because to me, it's appalling. I've
Right.
been involved myself a lot, and my name's been
Yes,
rung around here and there
yes.
and used certain ways, and a lot of people are very happy to speak behind your back and say things for you. I
Yes.
understand that happens.
Yeah.
But this is a blatant misuse.
Oh.
This is using the website. This is using graphics. It's using your name.
Right.
It's using basically, your good intentions.
Well, it is actionable, by the way. It's fraud, what they're doing, using my name this way. So I have to see how far I want to go with it. But
Right.
George Demos, I will try to contact him again. And he really should say something. It doesn't speak well of him that he is encouraging this, really, by his silence, if nothing else. But when you look at some of the things George Demos has done in terms of trying to promote himself, using funds from California Democrats, turning in a whistleblower and then bragging about his role at the SEC that's a nonpartisan issue.
You want to go into a little more detail with that? We've heard some things about that. We understand he was an SEC attorney.
He was.
There was a whistleblower who was involved in the case. What actually was his involvement? And, listen, I think character counts, to be honest.
Yes.
And you have to be judged by your actions,
Yes.
in the past, not so much what you say, but what you do.
Right.
Give us a little detail on that SEC experience that Demos had.
Sure. Well, I was supportive of George Demos as a candidate until I found this out. And I have been in touch with Peter Severa, who is the whistleblower. And I have a lot of information on it, and I feel very strongly that this is a nonpartisan issue. We should all be outraged by this. When Peter Severa was a compliance officer, it was during the late trading of the early 90s. There were scandals going on, and the J.P. Morgan Chase was asked to compile any records, any emails, any letters that would in any way concern this case. And as a compliance officer, Peter Severa did collect that information. And the more he collected, he found that he was going to, he got in trouble with Chase. He was fired. And he decided to file an SEC, a FOIA request. It was also investigated by a nonpartisan group called POGO. And he found that an attorney for the SEC turned him in. Called an attorney who was supposed to be investigating J.P. Morgan Chase for SEC, turned him in when he was trying to do the right thing and give the information to the SEC. Because it seemed Chase was, indeed, there were many things implicating them in this case. And when he filed the FOIA request, he found that the attorney whose name was redacted and who had denied it was him, it was George Demos, and he had denied it up until then. And then he admitted it and said, well, he really didn't have to abide by that confidentiality because he wasn't his specific attorney. But as an attorney for the SEC, of course he did. And there were 3 judges who said he should be considered for ethics violation.
But instead, I understand he was allowed to resign.
He was allowed.
Is that
he
how it was
resigned.
resolved?
Yes, he resigned quietly, and Peter Severa tried to follow it up. But there's influences, money involved. Who knows? But all it takes is common sense to know that if you're investigating, you're supposed to be in the government investigating Wall Street, and then you turn around and you give the name up of the whistleblower. That's just not ethical. I don't think it takes an ethics committee to make anybody can figure out that's not ethical.
No, it seemed clear. I know we've had a long history here of protecting whistleblowers who are trying to do something right for the people.
Right.
I see we have a phone call here. It looks like we have Angie. Is Angie still on the line? Angie, are you there? Angie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, Angie, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Welcome to the John Gomez Show. You have a question?
No, actually, I wanted to ask Maureen with the sheet that she had given up at the last meeting for us to get signatures on a totally different thing on Bologna, where I can send them to her.
I never gave out a sheet at a meeting.
Oh, okay.
What meeting was this?
Okay, at the last CSA meeting.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh.
You know what? If you want, you can give me a call after this show, and I'll
Sorry.
get you the information,
Okay.
okay?
Oh, sorry.
I
And my
appreciate it.
other question was going to be if you were going to talk about what's going on with Demos and Zeldin, and you did.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, we appreciate the call, Angie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Give me a
bye-bye.
call after the show.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, and it looks like we also have Anthony on the line from Shirley. Anthony, are you on?
I'm on the line.
Anthony, how are you?
But how are you?
Good.
I just wanted to bring notice that I saw Demos was taking a lot of the political clubs, political figures, and putting them on his website, saying that they're all supporting him for his campaign.
Well, I mean, he does have some support. Who in particular are you aware of?
Sure, Jesse Garcia was one. I would question that. Two, there was a Tom Moritore. There was some of the Republican clubs. I'm trying to think some of the officials that are on there. But
where did you see that, Anthony?
It was on Friends of George Demos on Facebook.
Friends of George Demos on Facebook, and they're saying that Jesse Garcia, who just left this office, by the way, is supporting George Demos?
He's supporting, yeah.
Really? Well, we know that that's not the fact. So
we definitely know.
We're going to have to look into that, Anthony. Do you have a web address, perhaps, so we could check it out?
Excuse me?
Do you have a web address for that? It's just on Facebook? You're saying Friends of George Demos?
Go to Facebook, look at Friends of George Demos. I already mentioned it to Jesse, and I think he was supposed to try to delete it, but he looks like he didn't get it all.
Interesting. Well, it seems to fit in with the pattern here. I mean, they hijacked the Independent Sentinel. Now it looks like they're hijacking Friends of the Demos campaign and putting up whoever they feel they want to put up.
Wow.
We'll have to look into that further, Anthony. I want to thank you for.
One other thing.
Yeah.
I read a law saying that the Supreme Court has brought down, saying it's okay for a politician to lie. It's up to the citizens to be able to realize what the truth one isn't.
Well, technically that's correct, Anthony. Public officials are protected from that type of lawsuit by virtue of the fact that they are public figures. In effect, if you hold public office, you're almost protected from libel and other misstatements of fact. So you're right about that. Unfortunately, anybody who's deemed a political figure or a celebrity seems to be protected from that from any kind of legal action relative to a lie or misinformation. That is the case. It's a little bit sad, which is why we have shows like this. We're trying to show that some people maybe are disingenuous, that people do lie. We know the president does.
I do appreciate it. The point I wanted to bring up with that old comment was that this is why people don't vote. Because you don't know who to trust and what not to trust.
Yeah.
Anthony,
I think if they were held up to the responsibility of being truthful, I think there would be a different story in the voting capabilities in this country.
I agree with you 100%, Anthony. One of the problems that we seem to have in politics today is apathy. You could see it with the turnouts. We discussed it earlier about a primary that's going to be taking place on the 24th of June. The expectations are that about 7 out of 100 eligible voters will show up for the primary. That means we have an extremely small number of people who are making major and momentous decisions for the rest of us. One of the problems that we've always had is trying to get people out, get people to vote, and get people to understand that their votes count. And, I'm not sure exactly how you do that, except people should be like yourself and be offended by it and understand that showing up on Election Day probably is the best way to get back at these people. And additionally, become an army of one yourself and anybody else who's listening. Maureen, who's sitting with me right now, is one of those people that I call an army of one. She's gone out and she's expressed herself and exposed herself with the truth. Is being attacked now for her independence as on these issues that are important, and I just think we can't give up on that stuff. Anthony, I appreciate your sentiment there, but I think what we're going to try and do in the next months and years is try and activate the base of people who believe in common sense. And unfortunately, you're right. I think a lot of people said, hey, you know what? Both sides are bad. It's the lesser of two evils. Corruption reigns, and they're no longer offended by it. As far as I'm concerned, I think we need to make it clear that we are outraged. We are outraged when a campaign lies. We're outraged when a campaign allows the misuse of somebody's good name. I think we have to be outraged when somebody gets into office and then refuses or fails to deliver on their promises. And unfortunately in America here, or fortunately actually, we the voters have the final determination. And if we show up on Election Day, I honestly feel that we could make a difference. And, it's one of the reasons we have this show and we have people like Maureen who are out there trying to spread the word and trying to reach as many people as possible. So I would say, Anthony, you keep up the good work on your part. Become one of those Army of One. Talk to the people that you know and, stay involved.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you, Anthony, for the call. I appreciate it. How do you feel about that, Maureen? I mean, I know that's what you do. I know that's what you've stood for. As we said, we worked together for a long time. Maureen has worked together with our organization in the past. She has a great gift of being able to write and to express herself. One of the first projects we worked on together was a rewriting of Common Sense. If you recall, It was Thomas Paine's great work, which inspired the revolution in the United States, which was basically a fight against tyranny coming from England. And it seems we have the same tyranny coming from Washington these days, and Maureen worked very hard to put out a new version. It was Common Sense 2012, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
You could see it actually on our website, as a matter of fact. It's csa-1776.org. So if you want to see some of these documents, you might be able to take a look. But one of the things that we do here, and one of the things that we are here, is to try and expose the truth. I want to thank Maureen for coming in today. I know she's not going to give up. I know she's going to try and expose the fraud that's going on with the misuse of her name and the misuse of that organization, Independent Sentinel. Again, I would suggest that you take a look at that yourself. You'll see a lot of truth out there about what's going on. And again, it's independentsentinel.com.
Right, and the reason we exist is we don't make money, we lose money on this, and we do it for one reason, and that is to be a counterforce against the very far left stuff that's out there on the internet. And I was raised a Democrat, so I've come to a different place because I believe in freedom for everyone, and I believe in individual freedom, and that's why we exist. And no matter what they do, I'm going to still be fighting. I'm not going to let anything cow me. So
No, I appreciate that.
That's
Maureen.
why we're here.
No, thanks for coming in and keep up the good work. I appreciate it. By the way, there's going to be a tax day tea party for anyone who's interested up in Hauppauge at the county center. That's going to be on April 15th, with, of course, it's tax day. Come on down from 4 to 8 o'clock. We'll have a good time. We'll spread the word. Thanks for joining us today on the John Gomez Show. Steve Flanagan reporting today. Have a good day.